Other duties of the primary caregiver. You make it a point to greet that child and parent. Be sure that they are not missed as they enter a classroom or leave at the end of the day. Help that child ease into transitions. Because you know the child so well, you know that they may need an extra 5 minutes warning or that your infant is easily startled. You are the one that will provide the personal care routines of preparing meals and feeding the child, changing diapers, or putting that child down for naps. You become aware of how much your child eats, what food he likes or doesn't care for, and when that child gives cues for being tired. Other duties that fall under the role of a primary caregiver are to document those daily activities and write daily reports or notes home. You are the one who observes and documents the child's growth and development. Each primary caregiver should become involved in the lesson planning process. By knowing the child so well, you can help plan individualized activities that will match each child's needs. The idea is that you are to use what you know about your primary group to plan ideas that are relevant to your individual children. Don't become confused. Primary caregiving is not exclusive. It still requires teamwork. Each caregiver must remain flexible and committed to quality care for every child in the program. She may be assigned to 5 or 6 children, but she must interact with the others in the group. This helps create other relationships that the child can fall back on when the primary caregiver is unavailable. By pitching in and helping each other, everyone's needs are met and the children benefit. No child should do without just because the primary caregiver is unavailable. Make every effort to communicate. If either caregiver is unable to meet an immediate need, make a request for help. Consult with one another before presuming to help out with one another's primary children. Pass on crucial information. Work as partners with fellow caregivers. Staff breaks should be handled systematically. Make sure that each other's children are cared for and that all interactions are recorded and shared with one another. This partnering works even if a substitute is responsible for the children. Share information. Be sure that important information is passed on. There are these 3 basic elements of primary caregiving that we are going to talk about now: continuity of one relationship, continuity of care, and appropriate social interaction. The first element is continuity of one relationship. This means that a child has as few primary caregivers as possible during any given day and within any given week. A trusted caregiver serves as a home base for her children. An infant or toddler who is confident that her caregiver is close by and available is willing to move out and explore the world on her own. This simply means that a child feels safe enough to crawl a few feet away because she knows she will be able to get help from her special adult if she needs it. The security of a child's attachment to primary caregivers provides a base for the child's social-emotional development. Researchers have found that children who are securely attached to their caregivers are more socially competent and tend to be better play partners with peers. The second component is continuity of care. Keeping primary caregivers and assigned children together over time allows the development of loving relationships between caregivers and children and between the children themselves. A sensitive caregiver observes her children's interactions with others. She is aware that a young child identifies with her behaviors and patterns his own behaviors after hers. The caregiver knows her children well enough to know when to intervene in a difficult situation between 2 or more of them. She helps her individual children learn to negotiate and cooperate with one another as much as their developmental levels allow, and helps them learn to be sensitive to others' needs. Group care that supports the child's attachment to a specific caregiver and small groups of children over time promotes the child's healthy growth and development. In a primary care group in which a child shares a primary caregiver with 2 or 3 other children, the child often forms strong bonds not just with the primary caregiver, but with the other children in the group as well. Such bonds mimic sibling bonds and may be especially rewarding for children who do not have siblings at home. The child-child bond is an especially important one in a program in which children do not have the same primary caregiver for the first 3 years of their lives, which, unfortunately, seems to be the norm in many group care settings. Daily interchanges with familiar adults and children give the child's world a comforting and empowering predictability. A strong caregiver-child attachment facilitates the development of trust and helps with separation and stranger anxieties. Separations can be sad and painful for both child and parent. Having a significant other there to hold him and get him involved in something that interests him eases the transition from home and makes separation less traumatic and often as easy as a kiss goodbye when mom and dad leave. Even for a child who always has a hard time with separations, the emotional support the primary caregiver provides is priceless. Continuity of care also means that caregivers and children continue together for a long period of time. This gives time for the adult to become familiar with the child and the child to become familiar with the adult. Fewer transitions mean fewer upheavals, and that really helps give the child a sense of security. The time together is important as it helps the child become comfortable with the adult's style of caregiving. Attachment is emotionally important to a child. Through continuity of care, children receive the gift of stability and the sense of belonging. The last element is appropriate social interaction. This is where the foundation of social emotional development is laid. As you observe the children in your primary care group, you should be asking these questions. What is the child doing now? What difference can I make in this moment? How does the child respond to me, the caregiver? What might she be learning from this encounter? What happened last time? What does she need to do to gain my attention? How does this experience help her define herself? When you know a child this well, you can do more for this child than anyone else can. But you can pass along this information to those that you team with as well, so that they know what to look for when you are not there. I'm sure that we can easily see the advantages that primary caregiving has for the child. Erikson's theory states that the first component of a healthy personality is a sense of trust. Of course, the parent-child's relationship is far and away the most influential relationship a young child has, but his relationship with his full-time care provider is very important too. And if the relationship that caregivers build with the young child affects how he approaches all future relationships, the caregiver has a responsibility to work on developing the most trustful and pleasurable relationship she can. Switching from one caregiver to another takes a toll on children. The child has to build trust over and over again. When a child loses a caregiver, that special person, he really loses part of his sense of self and the way the world operates. Too many changes in caregivers can lead to a child's reluctance to form new relationships. The primary caregiver gives the child a home base or a safe haven. It gives them a special person that they can go to. Think about how we feel as adults when we are in a large group experience versus a small group experience. Consider the difference between a small intimate dinner party versus a NASCAR race where there are thousands of people. Which one is less stressful? This is how we should consider the children that we care for. Larger groups are going to be more stressful for children. They will not get the individual attention that they deserve, but will have to fight harder to be seen and heard, just as we have to fight harder to move through a crowd. A child will feel more secure if he is in a smaller group. He knows that you are within easy reach and that you are more attentive of his needs. There is more flexibility in smaller groups. We can take time with activities and children when there are less children to deal with. It's a given that the environment will be more relaxed and homelike, just as we see can happen with an intimate dinner party. There are advantages for the caregiver as well. Likewise, we learn to understand just how important we are to the child and to the child's parents. Employees whose supervisors help them develop skills and gradually gain control over their work environment are happier and more productive. The staff person is responsible for the daily care of her children. She plans for, observes, and evaluates them on an ongoing basis, changing routines or the environment as they grow. The caregiver develops a sense of pride and achievement, as well as a sense of importance to the group as a whole. There is that daily reward of seeing the positive effect that she has on the life of her primary children. She sees them grow physically, emotionally, intellectually, and socially, and knows she is playing a very important role in their development. And of course, there are advantages for the parents. They know who to ask. Again, the child's parent knows, the director knows, other caregivers know, and the child knows. Having one adult primarily responsible for their child all day means that the parents have one primary contact with whom to communicate and share information. Parents know who to ask for when they call the center, and they know the caregiver's work schedule. And the caregiver knows the parents well, having formed a bond with them as well as with their child. Together, they share information about the child's development and needs and work to make positive decisions about the child's care. The primary caregiver-parent relationship is as important as the primary caregiver-child relationship. A parent who develops a relationship with the primary caregiver also is more likely to share important information about the child's home life. Without the single direct contact that primary caregiving provides, the parent may not want to share such personal information for the whole staff to know. But with one significant adult to share information with, the parent may give information or suggestions that help the caregiver understand and more appropriately respond to and nurture the child. In return, a primary caregiver who has a strong bond with her families can advocate for needed changes or suggest new direction for growth in staff meetings, etc. The parents feel comfortable leaving their child in care. Not only does the caregiver ease the separation anxiety that arises at drop-off time for the child, but for the parent as well. A confident, happy parent sends the child a message that her care is good and safe, adding to the child's sense of comfort and security. So, how to get started? You'll want to gather information and knowledge about the child and the family. You want to know about their culture, their child's temperament. Is she fearful? Does she easily make friends? Is she quick to participate in new things? You can use new family intakes or pre-enrollment meetings, home visits, conferences, phone calls. Do a meet and greet or other method of making contact with the family. Take part in tours. Introduce yourself. Develop a center information sheet that can be used when children are enrolled or transitioned into your classroom. Use any opportunity to gather information. Next, complete the task as assigned, developing some potential questions that you could ask on a family's information sheet that may help you obtain knowledge about the child and their family.